For someone who does this a lot, it's occasions like this that you don't know what to say. I could probably stand up here for a long time and go on a storytelling journey with you in regards to Brandon. But what I think I'll do is tell you how I met Brandon, and you know, I don't look back a lot as someone who's constantly creating and looking forward to the next project, but watching this slideshow as the presenters before me were up here speaking helped me to remember a lot of things that I hadn't thought about in a while. I try not to live in the past too much, but I think it's on occasions like this that we have to look back and put things into context. In 2006, I came back to my native New York City because over the internet I was able to dig up information about a burgeoning gay Latino literary and arts movement. The stuff that Emanuel Xavier was doing and still does, Charles Rice Gonzalez's Bronx Academy of Arts and Dance and so forth. And I really wanted to be a part of that somehow. And plus New York was home for me, so after a 17-year hiatus I came back and quickly found my way around the scene. After I started my reading series, I got this really sweet friend request on Facebook with a message from Brandon in the Bay Area where he was living at the time. And he said, hi, he introduced himself, and so forth. And I hear through the grapevine that you have this reading series. I'm moving to New York soon, and I'm hoping that we could connect once I'm there. So me being community-minded, I thought, great, there's another voice to bring into the fold. And I welcomed him with open arms the same way the people who welcomed me did. Because I really believe if we don't help each other, we're pretty much fucked. So things developed. Before he got here, he wrote to me and said, I'm having a book published of poetry through a press that was around at the time called Sunshine Press. Would you read my stuff and possibly blurb it? I said, of course. So I read it, I really liked it. I sent him a blurb, he was happy about it. And then the Sunshine Press folded in the economic recession, and his book was kind of in limbo for a while. So he wrote to me and said, you just had a book published through Rebel Satori, which I learned about through Emanuel Xavier. And he said, would you consider putting in a good word for me? I said, of course. So I looked at the new manuscript, sent a letter to spend at Rebel Satori in Maine, and recommended Brandon and kind of talked about what was going on down here. And sure enough, the book that he did with David was published as a result. So in terms of Brandon himself, I can't tell you that Brandon and I weren't best friends or anything. But life can be very ironic. And when you're in this sort of arts movement, sometimes you don't see history happening in front of your eyes, and I think until you have to look back at it. And when you're constantly creating, it's hard to put things into context. But it was always really lovely to see Brandon, and I was heartbroken when I read the news. I say that sincerely. I was like kind of in a funk for a week. I'm still not really over it, but when you've lost as many people as I have, the healing can happen a lot faster than it can for others. But he will be missed. He was very special. And just to put things into perspective, there's another very talented writer and actor in the room tonight, Carlos Alberto, who is developing a play right now. And I think, was it a couple months ago, the reading was, invited me to read a part for one of the readings. I said, oh, I'd love to work with someone else's stuff and get out of my own head. And it was on my way to that reading, Carlos, that I saw Brandon for the last time, not far from here actually. And we stopped on the corner and just kind of caught up and hugged and smoothed. And he was on his way to where he was going. I was on my way to read for Carlos. And that was the last time I saw him in 3D. But it was a really lovely way to see him for the last time. So anyway, I wish all of you well. I see lots of familiar faces here, some new ones. But if there's one message I can relay tonight from having known Brandon and being part of this incredible group of artists that are sort of queer and Latino identified here in New York, is that if someone needs help, maybe offer it to them before they have the courage to ask you for it, okay? So bless you all, and let's make sure to celebrate too, because I don't think Brandon would want this to be a glum affair. So with that, I'm going to bring up the wonderful Emanuel Xavier.
Hello. I met Brandon in Minneapolis, and I was perhaps one of the first few people to publish him in an anthology called Mariposas, a modern anthology of quilting and poetry. And when he moved to New York City, you know, I helped introduce him to the queer literary art scene, and we remained friends throughout the years. It's kind of hitting me now. I mean, I know it's a cliche, and so many people have said it, but just being here, it's a certain reality. This is the last place that we performed together for an event that he put together, and there's some hideous pictures of me on Facebook. I wrote this at work today. It's called Equilibrium, which is the name of the event where I first met him, and it's for Brandon. I first heard the news of your passing on Facebook. Ideal, I suppose, as it was the same place I often kept up with you lately. Your eating habits, love life, exercise routine, sexual encounters, and other survival skills. You often joked about how we spent more time together before you moved to New York, but this was also before social networking became the piece de resistance. Yes, girl, I totally went there, and in French to boot. When we first met, you were assigned as a fellow gay wordsmith to entertain and show us around Minneapolis. Impressed by the posh accommodations my manager and I were provided, of course he took us to the sleaziest bar and reveled in the insanity of life before we took to the stage and crafted poetry out of chocolate rain. Our bond together was named Joe, and he touched our lives in different ways and times. It was this discovery that made us aware our hearts had much in common, besides poetry and decadence and drag queens and daddies. We both longed to be held and comforted in arms in spite of the inevitable hurt. But you also had challenges I could only write about and fight for from sidelines. Besides emotional neediness, what we both shared as artists was the desire to open hearts and minds, perhaps considered unhinged and way off center, never ones looking to just make people happy or fit neatly in boxes. It was your inappropriate jokes and wicked laughter that set the tone for the party, disguising the want to fit into the world as queer colored boys often feel. I will never know if I crossed your thoughts in those final moments. And I wonder if your spirit has finally been set free by the Orishas, or Jesus, or Big Sam. We were never the BFFs, or lovers, or confidants we could have been. In the end, only you were the one capable of calming the raging fires deep within. But soldiers, thrust into the same revolution, are brothers nonetheless. The sun can't call you out anymore, and I no longer know where to find you. All that we poets ever leave behind are perhaps a few words or revelations hidden in between. They say silence equals death. But bitch, you were loud. I will remember you in those quiet moments. Continue this tradition to be heard. Someday soon, we will dance again and have ourselves a kiki.
So, sorry. Brandon and I are both poets by trade. Very talkative and loud people. But I think also what is kindred about Brandon that I adore, that I fell in love with, was that he was a cook. And he would, just as much as he would try to get somebody in bed or argue in a political struggle, he would try to convince you that there should be bouillabaisse here, or that there should be soy sauce there, or that there aren't enough cloves in this recipe. And he would tell you, well, he wouldn't tell you, he'd just put it in, and then he would say, I'm right. And I didn't always agree with him. So this is what I wrote just briefly and thought about. There are two things Brandon and I have in common. One thing is that we are both pet people. Brandon believes that he can give his dog Mimsy, David's dog Mimsy, sloppy ass kisses in the mouth. In public and in private, and he'll post it. We firmly disagreed on this once, having this conversation for over 2 hours, because I thought it was absolutely disgusting. But the dog is cute and so is Brandon, so it became acceptable. Because we disagreed on this, it was okay. Because we both cuddled our dog ones in celebration and in our most loneliest moments. Brandon and I are both seafood people. The first time we had food together, we didn't really talk. We just based our conversation on oohs and ahs over pots, claws cracking, the language of our mamas, grandmas, dirty cracking, meat loving. We wiped flesh from off of our faces, and we laughed at people who were vegetarian. We said, you're Filipino, my sisters are Filipino, we're both mixed race, this is how we do. And there we sat for 3 hours with little words. Our taste buds and our loved ones, savory, fleshy, hard shells subduing to our hands. What we couldn't change in the real world, we could do then for 3 hours and just laugh together and eat. He texted me saying later in a very serious, formal meeting and said, my eyes sting from the Old Bay seasoning. It is in my pores. I'm allergic, but it's still delicious. Let's do this next week. Once we talked about greens, he told me about how he learned to cook mustard greens, collards, sea spinach, and how sometimes our elders would say that you would cook your greens to beat them into submission. Instead, he just gingerly stirred, sniffed, tested the finish of the food, and there were no clear measurements. He did everything from scratch, something respectable, something his ancestors would honor just by memory. So this is the relationship some of us have with Brandon. Anybody who tries to hold him, there's a succession of heat, tension, mouth smacking, disagreement. And even though we didn't always agree, we were built with careful palms, sprinkling herbs with careful fingerprints. We may not have always concurred. There might have been too much salt, more brown sugar to be had, too much soy sauce, more fruit. But we always shared, melded, mixed brown queerness at the same table. I'm really hoping that he's eating all of his favorite foods in bucketfuls. Mussels and seafood and broth that he never imagined. Things that he said that his ancestors made that he didn't get to learn when he was alive. So I don't know if y'all are familiar with his other work, but he has this dope adobo recipe. And basically there's a picture. I'm just going to show you the picture. It's gorgeous. I highly recommend it. And it's adobo chicken, Puerto Rican style with a Filipino remix. Only he could get away with that, right? And his blog is called A Grassroots Culinary Experience for Broke Folks That Want to Eat Well. That's all of us in the room. And it's called fairychef.blogspot.com.
But I'm going to read one of his, a poem that opens his book. And it's called Stump Speech. And before I do that, I want to also apologize for some of the pronunciation, because I was working really hard at it, and they've been getting stuck in my throat, but we'll see what happens. But here it is. Stump Speech. I don't believe in America. I don't believe in the Constitution or the lies my teacher told me about Washington, Jefferson, the Boston Tea Party, or the American Revolution. I don't believe in the Declaration of Independence because it wasn't just all white, straight, rich, gender-conforming, racist, misogynist, sexist men that were created equal. I don't believe in America. Maps will put Indians in green and brown boxes. Legend calls them reservations. History will call them concentration camps. Labels call them Indian country. Rand McNally fucked up. The whole hemisphere is Indian country. I don't believe in preemptive wars for oil or oil to feed our hunger or hungry people when there is enough of everything but everyone. I don't believe America gives a shit about aching bellies or dying babies or street-walking crazies driven to insanity by crude priorities that emphasize refineries over healthcare, bombers over rehab, stakes over a place to sleep at night. I don't believe that corporations are people, or that people should be slaves to corporate interests, or that the interest of corporations is in the best interest of anyone but themselves. I don't believe the business of America is business, or exporting democracy, or that America is a democracy, or that democracy is voting, or that there is a lesser of two evils. Evil is evil. I don't believe in America because it had a name before Columbus, it had a name before Amerigo Vespucci, Cortez, De Soto, John Smith, Lewis and Clark. It had a name before Roanoke Island, Jamestown, Santa Fe, Miami, Detroit, Chicago, San Francisco, Milwaukee, and New Orleans. And I don't believe that New Orleans was a victim of a natural disaster. It was a human disaster. Global warming, White House ignoring, the writing on the levee, and the Kyoto Protocol, black lies, black faces, racist policies that paid more attention to a Minneapolis bridge collapsing than the collapse of an entire city. I don't believe in CAFTA or NAFTA or maquiladoras, national borders, border fences, or legal immigration. The border crossed us, and we are coming home to Aztlan, rebuilding Teotihuacan, the Tenochtitlan, Turtle Island, the Iroquois Confederation, the Mississippi civilization, Diné, Lakota, Dakota, Nakota, Cherokee, Shoshone, Creek, Blackfoot, Mohawk, Sanomish, Yupik, Inuit, Choctaw, Seminole, and Anishinaabe. First Nations still fighting the Indian Wars. I don't believe in colonialism, in colonization, or the annexation of Puerto Rico, Hawaii, the Virgin Islands, American Samoa, or Guam. I don't believe in forced sterilization of time tubes for toaster ovens, or toaster ovens as a bribe to give up the right for self-determination, or the right to give birth to revolutionaries. I don't believe that we have to put up with the KKK, with Ronald Reagan, the CIA, Abu Ghraib, Guantanamo Bay, Wounded Knee, the first or the second, Iraqi invasion, or the invasion of our phone conversations, emails, text messages, bedrooms, high schools, or library selections. I don't believe America has the right to tell me who to fuck, how to fuck, where to fuck, what to fuck, and where to fuck. I am fucking tired of hearing which president or senator or governor got caught fucking in a stall with a prostitute or an intern. I don't believe that loving someone has ever fucked with the moral foundation of the institution of marriage or the family. I don't believe America understands the fucking irony. Fucking get over it. I don't believe a social safety network, welfare, food, clothing, housing, quality education, health care, clean water, clean air, dignity, job security, affirmative action, reparations, the right to organize, the right to unionize, or the Bill of Rights is asking too much. For the record, it's not enough. Arundhati Roy said, "Not only is a new world possible, she is coming, and on a quiet day, I can hear her breathing." I don't believe that. I believe a new world is coming and that she is on her way, but she is screaming, she is calling to the poor, the downtrodden, the wretched masses of the teeming shores. She is organizing them into an army. Prostitute generals and faggot commandos, AIDS babies, and the artillery and dykes on Humvees. She is on her way and she is pissed off. And she doesn't believe in America either. And so I stand here in front of you with my disbelief, with my rage, with my anger, with my hunger, and I say it's time to stop believing that America is a dream. America is a nightmare, and it is time to wake her up. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. Blow up the ballot box. It's time for revolution. Thanks very much.